Hello everybody, and welcome back to the Future of the Fortress read-along, or should I say, the new and improved Future of the Fortress read-along. If you have any thoughts or feedback on the new look for the show, let me know down in the comments section. But before we dive in, the Future of the Fortress is a monthly Bay12 Games Q&A that happens on the Bay12 forums. During these monthly Q&As, the community discusses everything from questions about the current development of Dwarf Fortress all the way to far-off future features, and of course, current bugs and issues. If you would like to take part in the Future of the Fortress, I'm linking to the thread down in the description of this video, but of course, you'll have to make an account. So go to the Bay12 forums, make yourself an account, and once you've been accepted as having an account, then you can begin taking part in the Q&As. Before we actually read the questions, we are going to read the Bay12 Games Report, which is a monthly report that Tarn does, talking about the game itself. Toady writes, "Crafting and butchery made it in with the last beta release, which is a good milestone. There are various things left to do, but it's also approaching time to consider the larger issue of how the tutorial and Demigod and Chosen stuff looks before the beta tag is removed, and we can continue working on everything. We'll see soon." 10,000 copies sold in June, with quite a bit of that being the start of the Steam summer sale a few days ago. All in all, I'm getting married soon, which is great, because there's an international move involved and stuff is still up in the air and dependent on nations. Congratulations, Tarn. The first question comes in from Dick Butt de Great, and they say, "Tarn, I correspond with you more than most of my relatives. What's an example of a magical item effect prohibited by each of the following classifications of effect startup time? Magical item effects which are constant, magical item effects which trigger off a conditional, magical item effects which can be engaged by a creature in-game through its behavioral AI, once in its inventory, acting as a form of equipable interactions." And Tarn's response is, "You already came up with the spider gathering object for an item that gets into bad memory territory, and other examples in your original post. But I'm not really sure how to answer this question, since there are a ton of obviously bad and illegal / should be illegal magical effects. Everything needs ranges and controls. The stuff you brought up with marital state changes are important, and generally hitting the map lots frequently over tiles is gonna slow things right down. Too much line of sight over 3D space would also be bad. Similarly, we'll just have to be mindful. Though a lot will slip through, I'm sure, and conditionals are tricky for anything that wobbles, if the effect toggles. That happens with temperature sometimes, but also weight and happiness levels, and all that. So we'll have to be careful, in the same way we had to evolve mental stress. Pretty much the same magic conditionals will probably need to be smoothed out. AI will have to restrict to things we can actually do, and they have to not think very much, though we'll probably amp up some cases as we go that are fun. The next question comes in from Ear, and they say, "It might not be officially stated, but the usual state of the game is thus. The balance of most of the gameplay has changed from hard to easy for a dev cycle, then easy to hard for a dev cycle, and then the process repeats. I don't mind the contrast, but do you balance this way intentionally? As well as, what is the land speed of a flying ballista bolt?" And Toady responds with, "I don't think it's intentional. If that's how it's working, I have no idea. Maybe it's just an indication that I overreact, or a number of surrounding issues like that. There are a lot of forces at play, so it's not surprising it wobbles around. Looks like a ballista arrow moves in 3-step increments, so about 3 times as fast as a dwarf walks, but slower than many things run. But that was set before running existed." The next is an absolute wall of text from Eric Blank. They should change their name to Eric Verbose. And they say, "I ask not because I don't know about the raw file tags that control it. I do, but because of a bug that appeared in the Museum 3 a couple of years ago. Dwarves disappeared from the menu of races you can start an adventurer as, and had to be modified so they are outsider controllable, and a demon called Charcoal Brutes became playable from the same menu. This was weird at the time, and still is, because there was still a healthy number of dwarves in the world, including 2, now 4, resurrected by DF hack civs. I'm starting to suspect that the dwarven non-historical population got wiped out, and that's the cause of it. And I suspect all of the dwarves alive in the Save Today, 400 years after the World Gen ended, are members of player forts, and caravan guards, and merchants, or adventurers, who are all historical figures. And that, for whatever reason, the game is not counting historical figures among the population that counts towards whatever race is playable. Humans, elves, goblins have non-historical populations, and you can meet them and make historical figures in adventure mode. Hands of Plains Gifts, a necromancer experiment species, also have a healthy non-historical population. Black Bear Men apparently also do, although I don't recall seeing it in the sites and pops file. And Charcoal Brutes, no idea how that happened, maybe from the Goblin Civ that took over a civ that dug too deep. But I've been running an experiment to attempt to add new species to the list. I've been recruiting and breeding animal people from the wilds, and have a population of wolf people and wolverine people that both have had children born into the Dwarven Civ, as naturalized citizens. I also have coyote and Kia people that I expect to breed next turn. None of that has resulted in them being added to the list on the front page of the Adventurer race selection screen. They're still playable as intelligent wilderness people, though. Which is why I strongly suspect that the races on the front page are dictated by non-historical Civ populations, because all my creatures are fort members, and thus historical figures. But I have no way to confirm that's how it actually works, hence why I'm asking here. Also, did you intend to re-add the sites and pops file to the Legends mode menu along with the XML export? And Tarn's response is, there's a lot of looking through site lists for populations and so forth. As I recall, it wants to find a site for you to start in. And that's a little more restricted in the beta, since some non-town sites are pretty confusing to start in. So I think your theory is correct. And yes, we'd like to get all of the features back into Legends mode. The next question comes in from Mr. R, and they say, do we know how the procedural magic is going to work? In the development page of Dwarf Fortress, it states, new wizards beyond necromancers, by race, by skill, by object, by corruption, by deal with another power. The by skill is what intrigues me. It implies some sort of magic system that can be logically understood and exploited. Would a whole magic system be generated at World Gen? Or would it be abstracted so that it only generates spells that are locked by leveling some sort of magic skill? We have spheres in Dwarf Fortress. Would the magic system pull from that? It's not 100% clear yet, says Tarn. I've made a lot of replies around it, and a DF Talk episode or two. There's a lot out there, but at the same time, the details aren't going to be settled until it happens. But yeah, I want to generate full systems, linked to the creation myth stuff, and then outward, into every element of play. That includes the skill system. Procedural skills are not only on the table, but generated reasonably early on. Whatever that means, I'll need them. Hopefully in a way that coheres with the rest of the generated and raw information, rather than slapped together. Though it'll surely have some feel of that as we start. Regarding the side discussion about a by object, I don't recall precisely what I had in mind when I wrote that remark. I don't think it was about learning from slabs, though maybe that counts, but more like an object that grants power, while it's held or worn. But as you know, everything is on the vast table. We'll see where we go. So this next one is kind of a mess of a back and forth, so our little note taker here had to do a lot of prep for this one. Maybe I should give him a paycheck one of these years. Currently I'm just giving him wine. Anyway, if you have a name for the dwarf who's currently on screen, let me know in the comments section. I'd love to hear it. He also would like you to know that you should definitely subscribe to my newsletter. Anyway, let's continue. This big multi-parter comes in from Odin Criteria, and they say, recently, I've been engaged in a bit of conquest, so I thought I'd ask some military-related questions. Will we be able to draw troops and squads from the populations of other holdings, maybe to reinforce or assist your fortress troops when they are attacking another site? And Tarn's response is, yeah, this is one of the main parts of the former army arc, which is now just army stuff to do. Odin's next question, will armies in the field be able to construct camps, forts, or castles? And Tarn's response is, they already make camps in adventure mode, which are absolute junk, so it should be improved. Yeah. And more should be possible. Additional fortifications won't be a focus at first, if they don't come up much in play though. Then Odin asks, will we be able to station squads in holdings or other sites and transfer them around? Yeah, I'd expect that with the first question. The next part is, will mercenary orders be hireable? And will they be able to be formed or founded in your fortress? And Tarn's response is, they are in World Gen, so it should happen at some point, though it's more purely economy inflected than other stuff, so harder to do, the way things currently are. Fortress subgroups as an aspiration includes everything already happening in World Gen. And the second to last part of this multi-parter, will nobles be able to hold administrative positions in the future? My original militia commander ultimately became the Duchess of my fortress, and I wanted her to inherit both positions. However, I found that even if I appointed the heir to the militia commander before the succession, upon becoming a duchess, she was immediately kicked from all previously held positions. This is obviously an infringement upon her noble privileges, and I won't stand for it. And Tarn's response is, yeah, there's all sorts of weird bugs and conflicts that need to be worked out. The more people are commanding and holding things as the army stuff comes in, the more things will get shaken out. The next one comes in from Rhino, and they say, there seems to be an odd dissonance between the type of creature that some cavern dwellers are versus the rest of the animal people. For example, there are rat men and simultaneously rodent men in the caves that are not supposed to be rat men per se, and there are amphibian men, serpent men, and reptile men. Again, this non-specific thing amongst dozens of specific equivalents. But then there's bat men instead of flying mammal men, and ant men instead of insect men. So I'm curious, why are cavern dwellers like this? Also, rodent people portraits are drawn with fake clothing instead of real clothing, like the dwarves. Does this imply anything negative about the prospect of them getting to have equipment graphics? And on that note, what is to be made about the fake clothing on animal people unit sprites in general, considering their portraits are drawn naked? On the topic of graphical purity in general, I would also like to ask, biomes are far more visually distinct on the world map than in the actual playing field. Has the team ever considered the logistics of a Minecraft-esque localized grass color or something like that? I'm also interested in what the state of palletized stone and soil floor is. And Tarn's response is, the original non-specific animal people are all supposed to be evil, ever since we added the outside ones, since we wanted a variety of creepy stuff underground in the normal way, and our normal, newer animal people are all tied to real-world groups rather than being bad humanoid. The bat and ant and cave swallow people are special though, since they have subterranean vibes in real life. They aren't evil. The fake clothing on rodent people doesn't mean it's unlikely they'll get equipment graphics. Jacob has already done a redraw on all the standard animal people in preparation for equipment graphics. We have lots of specific grasses, and a few specific grass pictures, but we should definitely do more with it. Palletized stone floors are on hold, since they would be gaudy splotches, and so we'd have to make it optional, with defaulting to off. And so it goes on the back of the queue. It feels like voxel games can get away with more here, and we have pebble graphics now that I still need to put in. Up next is another multi-parter. This was also compiled by the notes taker here, who still needs a name. And it comes in from Big, so let's get into it. Big says, since crafting and butchering is returning, will crafting remain how it was in the old version, where adventurers could only make bone jewelry and trinkets? It would be nice and fairly realistic to be able to whittle branches into wooden figurines and make low-quality arrows and crossbow bolts from them. And Tarn's response is, yeah, it was not expanded. I'm just trying to get this done. We'll expand later. Beeg says, will being a demigod, or being a member of a religious organization, or just carrying favor with a deity unlock magic powers that our adventurers can use, similar to sentient undead magic powers? Overuse of them could get the adventurer cursed to balance things. And Tarn's response is, the NetHack, or roguelike style way of doing things, with divine relationships is a bit gamey, but probably not far off of where Wills have to start, with the deity relationship tracking. Now, the editor mashed these three together, not sure why, but they seem to read like a straightforward line, so let's go through them. Beeg says, will preaching about a deity increase an adventurer's favor with them? And will religions ever get doctrines, such as values, favored by that religion, as opposed to culture-favored values? And will we eventually be able to sleep in castles, forts, monasteries that aren't hostile to us? Would you allow better RP, or a soldier, priest character? And Tarn's response is, I suppose this depends. I'm not sure what'll happen at first. Not all of them should care. Some should hate the public attention. And the variables are there, but I don't remember if I use them anywhere at all. Some of the military groups use them, but I don't know that religions do yet. And it would be reasonable to have priest characters. Beeg then responds with, structurally, religious organizations to the type of factions joinable by the player. Would it be a challenge to be able to ask to join them, like we can with other factions? Notably, currently we can start as part of these religious factions, already when selecting our religion. And Tarn's response is, they are the same internally. It just hasn't come up. I think you can start as a generic member of one. Beeg then follows up with, will we eventually be able to see the weather again? Knowing the phase of the moon is very useful for guesstimating when werebeast time is, without looking at the wiki. Yeah, it's just not done. It's on the list of stuff I haven't gotten to. And the final two chunks of this one, Beeg says, something that would be nice for bard characters is to mark which instrument skills are used by music in a culture when selecting skills, so you don't create a stringed instrument bard for a culture that has no string instruments. Could this be a minor improvement that could be added in the future? And Tarn says, yeah, it'd be reasonable. The next question comes in from Rhino, and they say, on the topic of color, I would like to attach a few color-related questions to this post. Birch trees are known to be white, and are described in-game of having silver bark. But the trees, and all of their byproducts, are in fact a dark brown color. Is it intended, or should we expect it to change? Redroot dye turns palletized clothing items into a brown color. That is identical to leather. Is this by design, and can we expect a red dye? And with the game now being visualized, does this as well open the door to a wider spectrum of new dyes? Loam is grayscale in the premium version, and looks like an error. When I first started playing the game, it was distorting and resembled stone. The raws indicate it is silver. Why is this the case instead of some kind of earth tone? Similarly, peat walls are a vibrant red color. But shouldn't it be some kind of high-carbon dark brown? Cobaltite was once prized for its blue color, but changed to black in the premium version. Was this a conscious decision that was perhaps based on realism? Or might we expect the blue stone to return? And Tarn's response is, we have some specific trees drawn and not yet entered, and more trees to do. It's work to do. Redroot isn't supposed to be red. We want more dyes. Yeah, I have no idea where I got the colors from. I gave the artists freedom to draw stuff, and I assume they went with references which are all the realistic colors. I think it's natural to tend that way, and if we want blue stone, we'll need a blue stone that's blue. The next question comes in from Crystallized Mire, and they say, will non-necromancer wizards make experiments as well? Do demigod and chosen ones, adventurers, have to believe in their god or not? If so, is the god chosen from the beliefs list in the character's creation screen? I'm asking this question because animal people and experiments can't choose any belief. And Tarn's response: demons with the right spheres already do experiments without being necromancers, so I imagine it'll be possible. As in the discussion, given what we have in mind, it would be a matter of what object of worship means, I guess. But unless we're hard-coding delusions in some way, they'd obviously just be sitting there. It is still an issue that not everybody has a choice here. I expect it's all gonna get blown up a little bit. The next question comes in from Vislar, and they say, now that Steam version has implemented adventure mode in a playable form, can Legends mode players start toying with the hope to see the map export and gen info and graphical map files function again? It would be an enormous help for players that focus on Legends mode and world exploration. Lack of this function is still keeping me in 0.47.05, and I sometimes feel a little left behind. And Tarn's response is, I'm still focused on adventure mode until it gets out of beta. Adventure mode was entirely left behind, more than Legends mode, for more than a year. But hopefully now I can get it out of beta and can go back and recover everything else that hasn't been updated yet. The next and final question comes in from Zaza, which I probably butchered, and they say, will there be a way to control the number of subterranean_animal_peoples anytime soon? I just tried creating a new world, and I have 4 of each of the default civilizations for a total of 20 overworld civilizations, and a whopping 755 subterranean animal people civilizations. Looking at their spread by race, I guess cavern settings might affect it, but I don't know if it's possible to indirectly control it via them. And Tarn quotes a Spatula66 here, so I'll read their post followed by Tarn's. And they say, it generates 1 layer linked per civilization per underground region. That would mean each world has as many subterranean civilizations as it does Forgotten Beasts. And Tarn's final addition here is, yeah, like Spatula said, it's just a layer link thing to make them occur in the absence of the game, understanding moving underground well. When we have better underground movement, the numbers of civs can be greatly reduced, as it just uses it to see who is in your cavern layer. And that brings us to the end of the Future of the Fortress. There was 1 or 2 that I left out because they were very long and very programming specific, so I would just sound like a bumbling numbskull reading them out. And the editor here, taking notes, decided to cut them on my behalf. Once again, I'm still looking for a name for this guy, so leave your best suggestions down in the comments section. If you'd like to support this channel and these videos that I do, they're very niche, and I'm trying to expand the reach, as well as the production value / entertainment value of these videos themselves. If you like the new format, or new visual format at the very least, let me know down in the comments section. I'd love to hear. And if you would like to support these, check out my newsletter. It's sort of like Patreon, with a free tier where you get a weekly roundup of everything that I've created or what I'm working on, as well as some thoughts in writing. If you'd like to get some extra posts and extra features, consider subscribing to one of the premium tiers, because that is where I'm going as I slowly begin to step away from the primary use of Patreon. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.